You know what's hilarious? Remote workers spent all of 2020 talking about how they were going to escape expensive cities and live that cheap small town life. Work from a coffee shop in the mountains. Pay $800 for rent instead of $3,000. Live like kings. And then they all escaped to the exact same 20 cities and proceeded to economically demolish the local housing markets so thoroughly that people who actually live there can't afford rent anymore. Congratulations! You became the thing you were trying to escape. You're the gentrification. You're the reason rent is $3,000 now in Boise, Asheville, and Savannah. You brought big city prices to small cities that have small city wages. And now baristas and teachers and normal people who lived there before you arrived are getting evicted because landlords realize they can charge tech worker prices. So today, we're counting down 18 cities where remote workers flooded in and absolutely destroyed the rental market for locals. Because nothing says I'm living my best life like pricing out an entire town of people. Who were there first? Let's get into it. Here's what happened and why it's a complete disaster for a lot of people. When COVID hit and companies went remote, workers in expensive cities realized they could keep their San Francisco or New York salaries and move somewhere cheaper. Brilliant plan. Except every remote worker had this brilliant plan at the same time. So instead of spreading out across America, they all flocked to the same picturesque mountain towns, beach cities, and charming southern cities that had been affordable precisely because there weren't a lot of high-paying jobs there. Asheville, Bend, Boise, Savannah, Austin, Reno, places that were genuinely affordable for the people who lived there. And then thousands of remote workers showed up with six-figure incomes and started bidding on rentals and homes. And landlords, being rational economic actors, raised prices to what the market could bear. The problem is the market could suddenly bear a lot more because tech workers making $150,000 working remotely can afford $2,000 rent. The teachers and nurses and service workers making $40,000 cannot. The result is a housing crisis in cities that never had housing crises before. Rents have doubled or more in some places. Locals are being priced out. Eviction rates are spiking, and entire communities are watching their towns transform from places they could afford to live into playgrounds for remote workers who will probably leave in 3 years anyway. This isn't about hating remote workers. This is about what happens when you inject massive amounts of outside money into local housing markets that weren't built to handle it. Supply and demand. When demand surges and supply stays constant, prices explode. And the people who lose are always the ones who were there first and don't have tech salaries. Number 18. Chattanooga, Tennessee. Starting with a city that marketed itself as a remote work haven and got exactly what it asked for. Chattanooga branded itself as having America's fastest internet and being remote work friendly. Rent has increased 40 to 50% since 2019. Average one bedroom is now around $1,300 to $1,500 a month. Local wages didn't increase 40%. Chattanooga's got outdoor stuff and lower cost of living than big cities. But locals are getting pushed out as remote workers flood in. Service industry workers are commuting from cheaper areas. Teachers are struggling. The city wanted growth. It got growth. And growth means displacement. Chattanooga is where fiber optic internet brought financial stress. Number 17. Providence, Rhode Island. Providence is close enough to Boston to attract remote workers wanting New England charm without Boston rent. Except now Providence rent is approaching Boston levels. Rents up 40 to 50% since pandemic. One bedrooms that were $1,000 are now $1,500 plus. Providence has art schools and culture. It was affordable. Not anymore. Boston remote workers moved to Providence. Providence locals are now looking at cheaper New England cities. It's musical chairs except everyone's getting priced out one town at a time. Providence is where affordability died trying to be Boston light. Number 16. Greenville, South Carolina. Greenville is the small southern city that tech discovered and promptly ruined for everyone who lived there. Rents up 50 to 60%. One bedroom is now $1,200 to $1,400. Greenville had charm, good weather, and low cost of living. Remote workers moved in. Landlords raised prices. Locals are screwed. The city has nice downtown and proximity to mountains. But all that charm doesn't help when you're a local worker watching your rent double while your wages stay flat. Greenville is where Southern hospitality met Northern prices. Number 15. Boulder, Colorado. Boulder was already expensive. Remote workers made it worse. Rents up 30 to 40% from already high baseline. One bedrooms $1,500 to $2,000 plus. Boulder has outdoor culture and proximity to Denver. It attracted outdoor-loving remote workers in droves. Boulder was unaffordable for normal people before. Now it's unaffordable for remote workers too. Everyone loses except landlords. Boulder is where even tech workers are like, wait, this is expensive. Number 14. Reno, Nevada. Reno marketed itself as cheaper than California. California heard that and showed up. Rents doubled in some areas, up 50 to 70% overall. One bedrooms that were $800 are now $1,400 to $1,600. Bay Area remote workers fled to Reno. Reno locals got displaced. Reno has no state income tax and outdoor access. But rent doubling means the tax savings don't matter, and locals working service jobs can't compete with tech salaries for housing. Reno is where California exported its housing crisis. Number 13. Spokane, Washington. Spokane is the eastern Washington city that Seattle discovered and colonized. Rents up 50 to 60%. One bedrooms now $1,100 to $1,300. Spokane was genuinely affordable. Seattle remote workers brought Seattle prices without Seattle wages for locals. Spokane has 4 seasons and lower costs than Western Washington had. Past tense. Now it's experiencing the same housing stress as bigger cities without the job market to justify it. Spokane is where affordability went to die. Number 12. Bellingham, Washington. Bellingham is the Pacific Northwest college town that became a remote work destination and lost its affordability. Rents up 60 to 70%. One bedrooms $1,300 to $1,600. Bellingham is beautiful, close to mountains and water. Remote workers love it. College students and locals can't afford it anymore. The city has nature and PNW vibes. But vibes don't pay rent when your landlord raises it $1,000 because tech workers will pay it. Bellingham is where college town turned tech town, and everyone suffered. Number 11. Burlington, Vermont. Burlington is New England charm with a side of housing crisis. Rents up 50 to 60%. One bedrooms $1,400 to $1,700. Burlington was always a bit pricey, but pandemic remote work pushed it over the edge. Boston and New York workers moved in. Locals got pushed out. Burlington has lake access and Vermont culture. But Vermont culture historically included being able to afford to live in Vermont. Not anymore for a lot of people. Burlington is where maple syrup costs less than rent. Number 10. Bozeman, Montana. Bozeman is the Montana mountain town that got absolutely wrecked by remote work migration. Rents doubled, up 70 to 90% in some areas. One bedrooms now $1,500 plus. Bozeman used to be affordable mountain living. Now it's as expensive as mid-tier cities, but with Montana wages. Bozeman has skiing, Yellowstone proximity, and outdoor life. Remote workers with coastal salaries bought and rented everything. Locals who work in town can't compete financially. Bozeman is where the Montana dream died of gentrification. Number 9. Savannah, Georgia. Savannah's southern charm being strangled by northern money. Rents up 60 to 70%. One bedrooms $1,200 to $1,500. Savannah had historic beauty and affordability. Remote workers flooded in during pandemic. Now locals are being priced out of the city they built. Savannah has architecture, culture, and coastal access. But locals working service jobs that support the tourism economy can't afford to live near where they work. Savannah is where hospitality workers can't afford hospitality. Number 8. Bend, Oregon. Bend is the outdoor recreation town that California discovered and destroyed. Rents doubled, up 80 to 100% in some areas. One bedroom is now $1,600 to $1,900. Bend was supposed to be affordable Oregon. Remote workers from Bay Area and Seattle turned it into mini San Francisco prices. Bend is skiing, hiking, breweries, perfect for remote workers who can pay $2,000 a month. Not great for locals making $40,000 a year. Bend is where affordability bent until it broke. Number 7. Portland, Maine. This New England coastal city became unaffordable faster than anyone expected. Rents are up 70 to 80%. One-bedroom apartments now cost $1,500 to $1,800. Portland once offered lobster, beer, and affordability. Remote workers from Boston moved in, crushing locals with rent increases. Portland has charm, coast, and a vibrant food scene, but its workers can no longer afford to live there. They're commuting from cheaper towns. Portland, Maine, is where lobster is now cheaper than housing. Number 6. Boise, Idaho. Boise is the poster child for remote work destroying local housing markets. Rents doubled, up 80 to 100%. One-bedrooms that were $700 are now $1,400 to $1,600. Boise was affordable Mountain West. California remote workers fled there, pricing out Boise locals. Boise offers outdoor access and red state politics. Perfect for California conservatives with tech money. Not perfect for Idaho service workers watching rent double. Everyone moved to escape California, bringing California prices. Number 5. Austin, Texas. Austin was already gentrifying. Remote work accelerated it to terminal velocity. Rents are up 60 to 80%. One-bedrooms now cost $15 to $20 to $100. Austin had music, tech, and relative affordability. The pandemic brought floods of remote workers, making it as expensive as cities they left. Austin has culture and no state income tax, but tax savings are eaten by doubled rent. Locals who built Austin's culture can't afford to live there. Keep Austin weird died of rent increases. Number 4. Asheville, North Carolina. This mountain town got completely overwhelmed. Rents doubled, up 90 to 110%. One-bedrooms now $1,400 to $1,700. Asheville had arts, mountains, and affordability. Remote workers flooded in, displacing locals en masse. Asheville boasts Blue Ridge beauty and hippie culture, but the people who made it cool can't afford it. Asheville is where the gentrification ate itself. Number 3. Santa Fe, New Mexico. Art and culture are being priced out by tech money. Rents are up 70 to 90%. One-bedrooms $1,500 to $1,800. Santa Fe was manageable. Pandemic remote work made it unaffordable for artists and service workers who define the city. Santa Fe is culture, art, and southwestern beauty. But when artists can't afford to live in the art town, what's left? Just rich people's vacation homes. Santa Fe is where art died so remote workers could have views. Number 2. Missoula, Montana. The college town became a tech worker paradise and a local nightmare. Rents doubled, up 90 to 120%. One-bedrooms that were $600 are now $1,200 to $1,400. Missoula was affordable mountain living. Remote workers from Seattle and Bay Area brought coastal prices. Missoula had university, outdoor access, and was genuinely livable on Montana wages. Not anymore. Students are struggling. Service workers commuting from farther away. Locals being pushed out. Missoula is where college students and locals both got priced out. Number 1. Spokane, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. The most dramatic example of remote work housing destruction. Rents more than doubled, up 120 to 150%. One-bedrooms that were $500 are now $1,200 to $1,500. Coeur d'Alene had genuine affordability, natural beauty, and a small-town vibe. Remote workers discovered it. Now locals can't afford to live there. Service workers are living in RVs. Teachers commuting from Washington. Evictions spiked. Coeur d'Alene is where the American dream went to die at the hands of remote workers seeking the American dream. So what does all this mean? First, remote work had unintended consequences. The ability to work anywhere is great for individuals. But when tens of thousands of hires move to small cities simultaneously, it destroys local housing markets. Second, this is a class issue disguised as a location issue. Hirers can always outbid low earners for limited housing. When you inject many hirers into markets with fixed housing supply, low earners lose. Every time. Third, the just build more housing solution doesn't work fast enough. Housing construction takes years. Demand can surge in months. By the time supply catches up, the damage is done. Fourth, this creates resentment. Locals see outsiders pricing them out of their own towns. That breeds anger and political conflict, and honestly, who can blame them? And fifth, this might be permanent. Some remote workers will leave these cities eventually, but many won't. Housing prices rarely go down once they've gone up, so these cities may just be expensive now forever. So there you have it. 18 cities where remote workers flooded in and rent doubled, crushing the locals. This isn't about hating remote workers as individuals. This is about what happens when economic systems collide. Hirers moving to low-cost areas raise costs for everyone. That's just economics, supply, demand, and who has money. For remote workers, these cities offered escape from expensive metros. For locals, remote workers represented displacement and crisis. Both perspectives are valid, and there's no easy solution. Some of these cities will adapt, build more housing, hoping supply catches up to demand. Others will become permanently unaffordable for normal workers, turning into enclaves for the remote working class. For the people who lived in these places before and now can't afford rent, this is a tragedy. Their communities change faster than they could adapt, and there's real human cost to that. For remote workers, maybe think about whether your presence in a small city contributes to displacing people who don't have options. Not saying don't move, just be aware of the impact. So here's my question. If you're a remote worker and you move to a small city knowing you might price out locals, is that morally okay? Is it just market forces? Or is there some responsibility to consider impact? Let me know in the comments, because this is one of the most contentious housing debates right now. And if you found this perspective interesting or uncomfortable, maybe subscribe. We talk housing markets, economic displacement, and the unintended consequences of seemingly good things. Someone has to document how remote work broke small city housing. Might as well be me.